Erev Tov, good evening, Baruch haba, welcome, shalom. This is our advanced class. No, this is our beginner's class. I hope you're not advanced. I did that last night. All right, this is our beginner's class. And going through the AlephBet. And last week, we started on Zayin. We did Zayin. We're finished with Vav. But we're going to keep Vav up for a while. Okay, so we got all of these to go through. We're going to keep all of them up for a while because they're all related. Remember that one letter is next to the other letter because there's a relationship between those two letters. So the order of the Hebrew AlephBet is not just, you know, whatever. There's a purpose to the order, and the purpose of the order is the relationship of one letter to the letter next to it. So let's go through the AlephBet, and we're introducing a new letter to you, and it is the letter Tet. Okay? So everybody say Tet.
Tet.
Notice that it sounds like Chet. Chet. Okay? So yeah, it's a CH, but it's a sound. It's from the back of the throat. And this is the next letter. We're on this one, and then we'll go to this one. Well, before we move on, though, just to show you, they sound alike because they look alike. What is a Tet? It's an upside down Chet. Okay? So they sound alike because they look alike, and they're next to each other for a very good reason. Okay? Which we will not get into tonight. But we will get into Chet, and you'll see some things. All right? So let's do the AlephBet. Ready? Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet. Again. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet. Again. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet. One more time. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet. Numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, very good. So we were talking last week. We finished up Vav and we moved into Zayin. And one of the things that we told you about Zayin is that Zayin is actually a Vav. So if you look at the Zayin here, you look at the Vav, even better up there, you look at the Zayin up there, and the Vav, and you can see how they look like each other, how they both what? They're both standing up, right? And so this is because the Zayin is a Vav with wings. The Zayin is the Vav with wings. What is the Vav? What is the Vav? Represents man. Okay, so the Vav represents man through the number 6. That it is the connector or the connection between heaven and earth. Remember that the Vav, that man has both the nefesh bechama, the animal instinct, and the nefesh shemayim, the heavenly instinct. We have an earthly soul and we have a heavenly soul. So in effect that we communicate with both. Okay? We communicate to both sides. The heavenly and the earthly. The animals here on earth, all of the other creatures here on earth, they're of the earth. They live by instinct. So all of the animals, cows, horses, sheep, goats, donkeys, dogs, cats, fish, parrots, birds, what have you. It's all by instinct. They live by nature. And this term nature is a euphemism for this instinct, instinctual living. In the book of Romans, Rav Shaul speaks about the natural man. This is the earthly man. This is the person who lives by instinct. This is the person whose lifestyle is eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. He's just living instinctually. The problem is that we are not animals. We are human beings, and we are created in the image of God. B'Tselem Elohim. We are created in the image of God. And because of that, we have the spark of the divine within us. We have another instinct within us. That God, when He creates Adam, He breathes into him the breath of life, and he becomes a living soul. Mankind, humanity, Adam, is the only being, is the only creature in which God takes a physically active part in His creation. That it says that God formed him from the dust of the earth. All the rest of creation, how is the rest of creation created? How is the rest of creation created? Through the Word. And God said. God spoke all the rest of creation into being. So the cows, the horses, the sheep, the goats, the donkeys, the dogs, the cats, the fish, the parrots, the birds, all of that was spoken into being. But man is not spoken into being. Man is not spoken into existence. Man, in the scripture says that man is formed from the dust of the earth. He's formed. What does this mean? It means that it's a person who works with clay. Right? What is clay? And again, Rav Shaul uses this analogy that God is a potter. We are the vessel. We're the clay. And so He forms. So what does a potter use to form the clay? His hands. Okay? So what we're saying, this again shows the importance, the special status of mankind, of humanity, that God puts His hands in the dirt. He gets His hands dirty, so to speak, in the making of mankind. And then breathes into him the breath of life. And so we are of the earth, right? What are you made of? You're made of dirt. The very name, Adam, Adama. Adama. Dust, dirt. Okay, everyone say Adama. So Adama looks like this. Yes. So this means dirt. And so the first man state is Adam. Adam is equivalent to saying human in Hebrew. Ish means man. Isha means woman. This is what he calls Chava, Eve. She's given the term Isha because she's taken from Ish. And so we are dirt. God forms us. And He breathes into us the breath of life. So what? We're both dirt. We consist both of this world, but also what? His breath, the heavenly realm. So we're a combination of the two. We are the only creature that is a combination of the two. That's why we are the connectors. We are the conduit between the two realms, between heaven and earth. We are the conduit. Okay? Is everybody with me here? What happens to Adam? What happens to Adam? He falls. He falls, right? He and Chava eat of the tree. And so they sin. They fall. So they need to be rescued. Who's going to rescue them? So this is where Zayin comes in. Zayin comes into play. So Zayin is the letter Z, Zayin. Zayin is a vav with wings. So last week we showed you, by the way, so we don't get, so six represents what? Man. What else does it represent?
6 days of creation.
Good. 6 days of creation. But how many days are there in a week?
7.
There are 7 days in a week. So 6 is what? Incomplete. 6 is short. Incomplete. So what does Rosh Hashanah say in the book of Romans concerning man? For all have sinned and done what? Fallen short. Zayin is the number 7. 7 is called the perfect number. What do we mean by perfect? Complete. So if you say to have a perfect week, you have 7 days. To have a complete week, you have 7 days. Is a perfect week or a complete week. So this perfection does not necessarily mean without error, without those kinds of things. It simply means that it is full, it is complete. Yeshua is both perfect, that is, he is without error, and he is also complete. As in the book of Matthew, Matthew chapter 5, where he says, do not think that I have come to destroy the Torah. I did not come to destroy it. I came to fulfill it. What does the word fulfill mean? Well, switch them around. Okay. So if you have fulfill, what you do is you just switch them around. Fill, full. He did not come to destroy, to do away with the Torah. He came to fill it full. Meaning what? To live it out. To live it in its perfection. He came to live Torah in front of us, to show us how Torah is to be lived. So he is what we call the living Torah. Is this scriptural that he's the living Torah? John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. By him all things were created. Y'all need to go back and watch last night's Tree of Life class. We got very deep into this. The word memra. Okay? I'll give you just a real brief taste of it. There was a Roman citizen. He was actually the nephew of either Herodias or Titus. They're not sure which one. Herodias had something right. Hadrian or Titus. He was the nephew of one of the emperors. His name was Onkelos. And you can go and look up Onkelos for yourself. Okay? Get all of his history, all of the story, Onkelos. Onkelos converted to Judaism. He lived in the time of Yeshua. He converts to Judaism and he writes, he translates the Tanakh, the Old Testament, he translates it into Aramaic. And then he takes the teachings, the Peshat, the teachings of the Torah, and he translates them into Aramaic, and these are called Targum Onkelos. So well done was his translations from Hebrew to Aramaic. So well done was his translations that they use both the Hebrew and the Onkelos translation into Aramaic in order to translate the scriptures into any other language. The Jewish people, to this day, when they're going to translate it into another language, Spanish or English or whatever, they take both the Hebrew and the Aramaic and Onkelos Aramaic, and they use both of them. What is really cool is that there was a tradition before the days of Yeshua. There was this tradition of not speaking the name of God, that we do not speak the Yud Kei Vav Hei, we do not speak the holy name. This tradition predates Yeshua. This is why in the New Testament, in the Brit Chadashah, you do not see his name spelled out. He is either called Lord or he is called Father, but he's not called by his name. In the Aramaic, so in Hebrew, we don't speak his name. Rather, we say either Adonai, which means Lord, or Hashem, which means the name. Okay? So we use Adonai, which means Lord, or Hashem. Ha means the, Shem, name. And these are what we call cover terms, cover words. These cover the holy name. So even in most English Bibles and Spanish Bibles today, okay, if you look at your English Bible where you come to the term, for example, Psalm 23 starts off how in English? Psalm 23, verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd. And it will look like this. It says the, and then capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. Why? This is the cover term for Yud Kei Vav Hei. And even in the English translations, this was respected. Okay? In Spanish, many translations will say El Señor es mi pastor, nada me faltará. Okay? So, Onkelos, following the tradition, following the Aramaic tradition, he uses the term Memra. What does Memra mean? Memra is Aramaic for the word. And this is to which John was referring in John 1:1. What is Memra? It is a cover word. Memra is the cover word for this. That's the name. So where in the Hebrew this would appear, he would put this instead. Memra. He would use this to cover for this. So when John is following this, when John says in the beginning was Memra, you could say in the beginning was what? Yud Kei Vav Hei. In the beginning was Memra. Memra was with God. Memra was God. The same was with God in the beginning. And further down in verse 9 it says, and Memra, the Memra became flesh and dwelt among us. So, can we then state that Yeshua is the living Torah? Absolutely. Even by traditions that predate his coming. So he is perfect in that he completes the Torah. Not completing it in a way that he does away with it, but rather he sets the example for us. He sets the standard for us to live to. And so, he's perfect. He's complete. He's the Vav. He's man, the man with wings. What would be a term that we would call a man with wings? So if you saw a winged man, what would you suppose you were looking at? An angel. Is he an angel? Yes, he is.
Who? The Word?
Yeshua is an angel. Yeshua is an angel. The angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord. When Israel is getting ready to cross the Red Sea, Yam Suf, the Red Sea, the Egyptians behind, right? The water in front. They stop. They hesitate. They go to Moshe. Why did you bring us out here? We're all going to die. All of these kinds of things. They're all there crying and complaining. Moshe tells them to stand still and see the salvation. See Yeshua, Ha Yeshua, Adonai. And the scripture tells us that when that happens, the scripture tells us that the Shekinah, that the cloud, splits in two, that the fire goes to the front. Remember that what is the Shekinah? It's a column, it's a pillar of fire by night, and a pillar of cloud in the daytime, right? They never appear at the same time. In the daytime, the pillar of cloud comes down, descends, while the pillar of fire ascends. And then at the nighttime, they reverse. The pillar of fire descends, and the column of cloud ascends. But on this day, both of them appear at the same time, and the scripture says that the column of fire goes to the front to lead Israel into the sea. That the pillar of cloud goes to the back to hide the escape from the Egyptians, so the Egyptians cannot see. They're in a fog. They cannot see. In doing this, the scripture says that there appeared Malach Elohim. There appears the angel of God. That the angel of God, the Malach Elohim, goes back with the cloud to where the Egyptians are. And Rashi makes a note of this. First of all, he explains who is this Malach Elohim, this angel of God. He says this Malach Elohim is the Memtet, is Metatron. Who is Metatron? Metatron is Mashiach. He's the Messiah. I don't have time to go real deep into this, okay? This is the angelic being who is called the angel of the Lord. But here he's called the angel of God. And he goes with his sword drawn. And so so Rashi says, why is he called the angel here? He's called the angel of God and not called the angel of the Lord, because Adonai, the Lord Yud-Keh Vav-He, denotes mercy. Elohim denotes judgment. Who is he going to judge? Who is he going to judge? They're already under judgment. He's going to judge Israel. If Israel does not move as he has instructed them to, he's going to wipe them out. He's going to kill them. He's going to slay them with the Egyptians. Yes?
Which again, between Lord and God? Which one's Adonai and which one's mercy?
So this is mercy. Elohim is judgment.
And Elohim, when you see God in the Bible, that
Yes.
is Elohim.
Yes, correct. So when you see the angel of God, this is Elohim. Okay, I lost my connection. Give me just a second here. Are you doing okay?
Yeah, it's still. What did you lose? Facebook?
Yeah.
Might be Facebook.
Okay, so the word malach is the word we translate it as angel. What the word malach literally means. Malach means messenger. So in the book of Revelation, where he speaks to the seven churches, the seven assemblies, the seven angels, literally to the seven messengers. This is why when I ask you, is Yeshua, is Mashiach an angel? Is he a malach? The answer is yes. He acts as a messenger. He acts as an angel. So this angel goes back with the cloud to where the Egyptians are, not to judge the Egyptians, but to judge Israel if they do not move. And so Rashi speaks to this saying, what? What's the whole idea here? If you're going to stay with the Egyptians, you're going to receive what the Egyptians receive. If you're going to stay in the world, you're going to receive what the world receives. This is why we are told, come out from among them and separate yourself. You see, as long as Israel stayed on that side, they were going to receive what the Egyptians received. They had to leave. They had to go forward. They had to separate themselves. The same is true for us. If we stay in the world, we're going to receive what the world receives. If we don't want to receive what the world's going to receive, if we do not want to receive that judgment, then we need to separate ourselves, move out from them. And so, this Malach Elohim, this Metatron, this one who is the Mashiach, this is the Messiah, goes back to, if you would, persuade Israel to move forward with the sword. His sword is drawn. Which brings us to this point here. Notice this mark right here, the paleo. Zayin is a sword. So that this is a man with wings, that he is malach, he's an angel. And so, as I showed you last week, I have here my talit. We wear the talit when we're doing the liturgy. We're going through the liturgy when we're saying our prayers and these kinds of things, and so we wear the talit. And so, what do I have? What do I look like? A man with wings. It's right there. The talit is the wings. But what is the talit? The talit is actually nothing at all. It is not the talit that's important. It's the tzitzit on the talit that are important. The strings or the fringes. Where he says to Moshe to tell the people that they shall put on the corners of their garments fringes, tzitzit. And so, what is the purpose of the tzitzit? The purpose of the tzitzit, that you may look upon them and remember to do all that I have commanded you. So the purpose of the tzitzit is to look upon them so that I look upon them. This is, by the way, this is called a talit gadol. Talit gadol. Gadol means big. I have on underneath, I have what is called a talit katan. That means little, a little talit. So it's a four-cornered garment, just like this, except for it's like a vest. Okay? And it's got the tzitzit attached to it. So that when I look at them, I will remember to do all that he has commanded me. So this has to do with Torah, to remember the Torah. And so you'll notice that the tzitzit is braided and tied with knots. It is specific. There's a kosher way of doing it. You can't just like throw it together, whatever. There's a reason for the braids and the knots. The reason for the braids and the knots is there are 60, when you put all the knots and all of the braids together, there are 613. 613, why? Because there are 613 mitzvot or commandments in the Torah. So this is to remind me that there are 613. And that I am to do what? How many of them? I'm to do, it says that you may look upon them and remember to do all. How much? All that I have commanded you. And we make note that he gives this command right after a man is put to death, a young man is put to death for breaking Shabbat. He broke Shabbat. They bring the man to Moshe, and Moshe takes him before God. God says, put him to death. And then directly after that, he gives the command for the tzitzit so that you remember, this is what I told you. So question, is keeping Shabbat important to God? You decide. Remember that he sent he sent Judah into Babylon for 70 years for not keeping Shabbat. For not keeping Shabbat. Think of when Babylon, when Nebuchadnezzar invades Judah, Jerusalem, destroys the temple, all of the hundreds, thousands of people who are killed, who are put to death. How many people are exiled into Babylon? Which is why we do the story of Esther. That's what the story of Esther is all about. It was not just about Shabbat, but Nehemiah in chapter 13 says that it was about Shabbat. Shabbat had much to do with it, but they would not keep Shabbat. So, where the tzitzit are attached, Where the tzitzit are attached to the talit, these are called the wings. These are called the wings. And so let's see. Let me find it for you. So turn to Malachi. You have your Bibles with you. Turn to Malachi chapter 4. Is that right? Let's see. Three. Huh. It's the same. Okay, I have to go to. So in the Hebrew Bible it has a different setup with the scriptures. In your English Bibles, it's Malachi chapter 4 and verse 2. I'll read to you the English Standard Version. But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. All right. So with healing in its wings. So do y'all see that? All right. So what have I shared with you so far? These are the wings. What is here? What did you just read is here? What is in the wings? Healing. Now remember that the wings represent what? The tzitzit represent what? The commandments, Torah. Okay? So, give me one more second here. So go to Matthew chapter 9 and verse 20. And in Matthew chapter 9, you have the story of the woman with the issue of blood. That's right. Yes. And so it says, and suddenly a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years came from behind and touched the hem of his garment. Literally touched the tzitzit, touched the wing of his garment. For she said to herself, if only I may touch his garment, I shall be made well. So Yeshua is wearing a talit. The talit is spoken of at his crucifixion. That he is wearing a garment that has no seam. What is a garment that has no seam? Well, if you look at a talit, it has no seam. Why? Because it's not like a shirt where it's seamed here and seamed here. This is for the covering of the head. And remember that the Roman soldiers did not wish to destroy it. They did not wish to tear it or cut it. So rather, what did they do? Huh? They cast lots. They gambled for it. to see who would win it. It was his talit that they were arguing over. The woman with the issue of blood, basically this is that she is in her period and she cannot stop bleeding, and she's been bleeding for 12 years straight. Imagine having that kind of a problem. We're told elsewhere that she has already visited all the physicians. She obviously was a woman that had been of some means because she was able to afford several doctors, but none of them could help her. As today, back then, doctors did not come cheaply. And so she can't stop bleeding. Also keep in mind that a woman who is in her period is tamai, is unclean. So this means that she cannot go into the temple to offer her sacrifices. She cannot go into the synagogue. She actually cannot be much around her husband or her family. If her husband touches her, he becomes unclean. It's not a physical uncleanness. It's not a disease. It's a spiritual symptom. It's a spiritual thing. Basically what it is, it's the idea of what was supposed to produce life has produced death instead. That the egg of the woman is supposed to produce life. But rather than producing life, when a woman is in her period, what? The egg has died. And so it's being passed out of the body. So it is death that makes her unclean. Basically that she has touched death. This is the idea here. So she cannot stop. So she reaches out and she touches the tzitzit of his talit, the hem of his garment. She touches the what? The wing. Why the wing? You just read it in Malachi. What's in the wing? The healing. And the wing represents what? Torah. What brings sickness and death upon us? So what is it that God said that Hashem told Adam and Chava? The day that you eat thereof, you shall surely die. So that the prophet says that the soul that sins shall surely die. So that Rav Shaul says in the book of Romans that the wages of sin is death. What is it? It's disobedience to the instruction of God that brings sickness and death. Thus, by reaching out and grabbing a hold of his tzitzit, what is she doing? She's reaching out and grabbing a hold of Torah. But not just the Torah, because who's wearing the tzitzit? Yeshua's wearing the tzitzit, and what did we just say about Yeshua? What did we say about him? That he's what? He's what? He's the living Torah. She's reaching out and grasping a hold of him. This is why he comes with healing in his wings. He's the living Torah. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. What is he? The living Torah. And so this is the man with the wings. The whole thing of the talit is angelic in effect. And it's about health and healing. Healing of the body and healing of the mind and healing of the soul, healing of the heart. So, one more thing about the sword. Go to the book of Revelation chapter 19. Revelation chapter 19 and verse 6. So he says, "Then I heard something like the voice of a great multitude, like the roar of a rushing water, like the rumbling of powerful thunder, saying, Hallelujah." Hallel, Hallel means praise. Yud-Keh-Vav-He, praise to Yud-Keh-Vav-He. Basically, is what Hallelujah means. That's it is Hebrew. So Hallel. Hallel means praise. When we do the liturgy on Shabbat, we read a psalm called Hallel, means praise. Praise Adonai. Praise Him in the heights. Okay, so Hallel Yah. Yah is a shortened form of Yud-Keh-Vav. So it means praise to or for Adonai. For Adonai Elohei, the Lord, Elohei, my God, Tsevaot, Elohei, the Lord God, Tsevaot, of hosts, reigns. Let us rejoice and be glad and give the glory to Him for the wedding of the Lamb. Now mark it down, for the wedding of the Lamb has come. So, I need you to think about this. Concerning this. The wedding of the Lamb has come, and the bride has made herself ready. She was given fine linen to wear, bright and clean. The fine linen is the righteous deeds of the Kiddushim, of the holy ones. Then the angel tells me, "Right, how fortunate are those who have been invited to the wedding banquet of the Lamb." He also tells me, "These are the true words of God." Then I fell down at His feet and worshipped Him, but He said to me, "See that you do not do that, for I am only a fellow servant with you. We are not to worship angels, we're not to bow down to them. Except one angel. There is one angel before whom mankind bows, and that is the Memtet, the Menatron, the angel of the Lord." So, for I am only a servant, a fellow servant with you and your brothers and sisters who hold to the testimony of Yeshua. Worship God, for the testimony of Yeshua is the spirit of prophecy. Then I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. The one riding on it is called Faithful and True. And he judges and makes war in righteousness. His eyes are like a flame of fire. Many royal crowns are on his head. He has a name written that no one knows except himself. He is clothed in a robe dipped in blood. And the name by which he is called is what? Right here. Who is this? You see, I was sharing with the group last night. Yochanan, John, is very Kabbalistic in both John and here in Revelation. These are very Kabbalistic thoughts. And the people back then, when John was writing this, they knew what he was talking about. It was not a mystery to them. This was something that was well known, well taught in that time. The armies of heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, were following him on white horses. From his mouth, now notice this, verse 16, verse 15, from his mouth comes what? A sharp sword. What did we say? Zayin is what? This is Mashiach. This is the Messiah. So he comes with a sword. All right. You ready? So, go back up to verse 7. Let us rejoice and be glad, and give glory to him. For what? For the wedding, the marriage, the wedding of the Lamb has come. And his bride has made herself ready. So, if the Lamb, if Mashiach, if the bride has made herself ready, then what does this mean about this? Who is this?
The groom.
This is the groom. Okay? So Messiah is the groom. He is the winged man. He's the one wearing the talit. Why? Because, you come up here. Can you come up here? Because, you see, take that right there. Watch this, you ready? Just open it up right there, like that. And now, lift it up. And now, as high as you can. Now I have a huppah. The talit makes a huppah. What is the huppah? The huppah is the canopy. Who owns the talit? But who owns the talit? In a wedding, who owns the talit? Who owns the huppah? The groom owns the huppah. He invites the bride to come into his huppah. To come under his huppah. To do what? Thank you. To come under his wings. Why? What's taking place? Why does he have his wings spread? What's taking place? A wedding. So let me say it again. Why does he have his wings spread? What's taking place? A wedding. He is inviting the bride to come under his wing. What does it mean to come under his wing? To come under his protection. To come under his shelter. This is what Yeshua does with us. He invites us to come under his protection. To come under his shelter. Remember we read last week that what? What does he say to Jerusalem? How I would have gathered you under my wing as a mother hen gathers her chicks. So he's inviting us to come under his protection. So what's on the chuppah? What's on the corners of the chuppah? The tzitzit. Because it's a talit. The Torah. How do you come under his protection? Keeping the Torah. It all goes back to the Torah. Torah is for what? The healing of the nations. Torah is for what? It's the protection. He says what? I have set before you blessing and cursing. I have set before you life and death. Choose life, and you shall live. And so he invites us to come under. So the talit, when you see a person wearing, when you see a man wearing a talit, it should remind you of this. This is the idea. This is what's being expressed by the man wearing the talit. This is what's being expressed in the Jewish wedding when they raise the talit as the chuppah, as the covering. And the man invites the bride to come in. And so this is the Messiah. He's the groom. So where's the bride? Here's the bride. Chet is the bride. The chet is the chuppah. So isn't it amazing that you spell chuppah as chuppah with a chet? In fact, in fancy Hebrew script, the chet actually looks, this script isn't going to be real fancy, but it actually looks like that. You see that? Like a little tint. Because the chet is the chuppah. Okay? Now, we get into some really cool things. So, what have I just done? I've just introduced you to chet. Okay? So, chet is the 8th letter. It's the number 8. And it has a sound ch, like a KH sound. We usually you'll see it, this is why I told you, usually you'll see it written like this, but it's, and if you're looking at Hebrew transliteration, it's not ch, it's okay? Its paleo is a fence. It is a fence. Why a fence? Because the chet is what? The chet is what? The bride. So it's the idea of protection. Did write that out very well. Protection. So, one of the things that we told you was to be aware of the direction of openings. Be aware of the direction of openings. Because the direction of openings is speaking to us. It's signifying something. So remember we spoke about the bait, it's open this way, the gimel, he's reaching this way, the dalit, he's bowing this way, the head, the breath is this way, the palm. Okay? So, where is the opening of the chet? Where's the opening of the chet? Right here. This is the opening of the chet. Everybody see that? So what's here? The ground. Very good. Saying what? This is the bride. This is her womb. This is the womb of the bride. Which direction is the opening?
Towards the earth.
Towards the earth. down, sealed, closed. If we were writing this on a lined paper, it would be right here like this. She's sealed. She's closed. Saying what? She is intact. Okay? She is intact. She has not lost her virginity. So we're talking about a young virgin here, a young lady. Notice in verse 8, she was given fine linen to wear, bright and clean, for the fine linen is the righteous deeds of the Kedoshim. Now, we've kind of lost this custom today. It's not, if you would, politically correct. But it was very common. It was a common thing. It still is common today. But it's skewed. It's lost its significance. The bride wears what color? Signifying purity, virginity. Saying she's still a virgin. Okay? Usually a woman who was not too long ago, a woman who perhaps had been divorced and was getting remarried, she would wear another color because she's no longer a virgin. A lady who is widowed and she's getting remarried would wear another color. White was kept for a virgin. Okay, so it was for the first marriage, but more specifically, exceptionally specifically, it was to show virginity, to show purity. This is very important. Why? Because the bride, in this case, is dressed in white, signifying righteousness. They are, in fact, called robes of righteousness. So, we're talking about a bride coming to her wedding day. This is the chuppah. By the way, just so you can see it, if I were to mark off here, if I were to put just this little mark right here, now what do you see? A vav and what? The vav and the zayin. The zayin is spreading his wings over his bride. That's the chuppah. By the way, look at the tet. And you have remember what I said, that the tet is a het upside down. By the way, look at the direction of the opening. Saying what? Signifying what? Fertility. This is the womb. Here the womb is closed. Here now the womb is open. She's ready to receive. By the way, what's the next letter after tet? We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but this is where this is. What's next? Yud. What does Yud look like? What if I did this? If this is the womb, now you have what? The embryo. By the way, the Yud is the only letter that is, remember that's next to the tet, the Yud is the only letter suspended above. It does not touch down here, it's up here. What is the purpose of a husband and wife? Procreation, to make a family. And you have all of this taking place here. And the making of a family between a husband and a wife, the raising of a family, is in fact representing the Messiah and his bride. Ephesians chapter 5. What does Ephesians chapter 5 say? Wives, submit yourselves, verse 22, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as to Adonai, for the husband is the head of the wife, as also Mashiach is the head of the assembly, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, just as the assembly is subject to Mashiach, so let the wife be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wife, even as Mashiach also loves the assembly and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself, notice this, a glorious assembly, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing. What are we talking about here? Purity. But that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own body. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, even as Adonai, even as Yeshua, Mashiach, does the assembly. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, of his bone. For this reason, notice the verse that he quotes here from the book of Reshit, from the book of Genesis, when God creates Adam and Chava. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. What is that? It is the sexual union, and the two shall become one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Mashiach and the assembly. So the husband, the groom, the husband represents who? Mashiach. The assembly represents the bride coming under his chuppah. And now what do? We procreate, we produce offspring. What do we mean we produce offspring? As Paul calls his converts what? As John calls his converts what? My children. Through your relationship with Yeshua, you are to be producing others. Okay? So, this is the womb. This is the womb. Now, we're going to close with this. Because there's a difference between this and this. And the difference is called potentiality and reality. This has potential. This is real. So Richard and Charity were going to be getting married. Some of you will remember those days. And we were right in the middle of this class discussing this very section right before their marriage. And so I invited everybody to go to the wedding so that you could see the dance. The thing was that before they got married, they were engaged. What happens in engagement? It's all a dream world. It's not real. It's all up here. Right? How many kids do you want to have? Oh, I don't know, 9 or 10. 9 or 10? Are you insane? You barely handle 2. Right? So they're discussing back and forth. When Wilma and I were dating, back in the dark ages, horse and buggy days, we were going to a college, a Bible college in Chattanooga, Tennessee, called Tennessee Temple University. She lived across the campus from me. I lived in the men's dorm, and she lived in the ladies' dorm. And so I would go and pick her up for her date. I was a college student. I had no money, no means. I worked at the Chattanooga News Free Press, the newspaper. I was the elevator operator. For 2 hours a day in the afternoon, when I got out of class, I would walk 3 miles to the newspaper in the snow, uphill both ways. Just kidding. I would walk backwards. I would walk the 3 miles. I would walk 3 miles to the newspaper, work 2 hours, and walk home. Except for Friday night. Friday night, I would walk the 3 miles to the newspaper, get there at 6 o'clock. I would work until midnight on Friday nights, and then I would walk home. Okay? Midnight, 3 miles, walking home in the dark by myself. Not a good section of town. Tennessee. Chattanooga. A lot of race problems. I'm a white kid in a black neighborhood. Okay? Saturday, I would walk there. I had to be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. I would walk to work. Mind you, I got off of work at midnight on Friday night. Had to be back at work 8 o'clock Saturday morning. And I worked on the elevator until 6 o'clock in the evening. And then, because what's the next day? Sunday, so you have the big Sunday run. Chattanooga's a pretty big city. And so you have all of the trucks going out with the newspaper Saturday night, going out with the Sunday edition. So my job was to go down to the gas station and fill up all the trucks before they went out. And so I would be there till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Saturday night, yes. Sunday morning, I had to be back at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I would work until noon. And then I would go back to campus, eat lunch, and I had to be back at 6 o'clock to clean up the mailroom, what they called the mailroom. It was where they would put the paper together, right? So they would have literally several hundred people there putting the circulars in the paper and everything like that. And the trash would literally be piled up to my waist, the paper on the floor, from all the newspaper and all the circulars and everything like that. And I would get pallets, and I would attach the pallets to the front of a forklift, and I would use that as a screed and push all the paper into a giant pile, and then I had to bundle it all up and all this kind of stuff. And I would be there till 1 o'clock in the morning. I had a 7 o'clock in the morning class. And I was trying to date Wilma at the same time. She worked in the dining hall. She was a server. She was a waitress in the dining hall. So what we did was, during the week, I would go pick her up. After I got off of work, I would go, and I didn't have any money. We didn't have any transportation. So we dated by walking around the block. And we walked around the block, and we walked around the block, and we walked around the block, and we walked around the block. I swear to you, you can still go to Chattanooga today and see the path that we wore into the block as we walked around the block. Literally 10, 15 times a night. Sometimes they had the little concrete benches and we would sit down on the bench. But what were we doing? We were talking and talking and talking and talking. All of our dreams, all of our aspirations, everything we wanted to do, everything we wanted to be. How we wanted to be together. All of these kinds of things. How many kids we wanted. Everything. We did this whole thing of Something you're very familiar with, right? Just you and me, baby. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if anybody likes us or doesn't like us. If your parents agree or don't agree, my parents agree or don't agree. I'll live in a car. We all live in a cardboard box with you. Right? You remember those days? But you see, it was all a dream. Dating life, engagement life, all of these things, it's all up here. It's all imagination. This is why we call it potentiality. Every woman has the potential to bring forth a child. Every woman. I was teaching this a while back, and it didn't set so well. Because there are some ladies who have not been able to have children. Every woman has the potential. Why do I say every woman has the potential? Well, because there was this little old lady named Sarah, who, number one, she was 90 years old. So she was past the age of bearing. She was postmenopausal by a few years. Number two, her womb had been sealed. She had been unable to have children. She could not produce any children. What happened? God made her, God opened her womb. It was a double miracle. God opened her womb, and then He made her womb like that of a young virgin. And she becomes pregnant. And what does she do? She brings forth a son. They call his name Yitzhak, and Yitzhak is the grandfather of the nation of Israel. Grandfather? Yes, Yaakov, his son. Jacob is the father of the 12 sons of the 12 tribes. There is sometime you might see, you can look this up online, there are necklaces that you can buy that have this symbol. It's a necklace, which is the Chet and the Yud. Chai. Everyone say Chai. Chai. How you doing? Chai. Chai. L'chaim. What? Chai. Life. Even Sarah had potential. In her old age and her sealed womb, she had potential.
So for L'chaim, you would just put the Lamed first?
Yes. L'chaim. Well, actually, because life, chaim, is actually chaim, it's plural. Okay? So it would be it would look like this. L'chaim. To life. Why is, by the way, why is it pluralized? The word is actually pluralized. Life, chayim. Like water is mayim. Life is chayim because you have more than one. Every human being has more than one life. You have the lower life and you have the upper life. You have the outer life and you have the inner life. You have the life that you show everybody, and then you have the life that is your own, your personal self that you don't share with anyone. You have multiple lives. So, some of us have multiple personalities, but that's a different story. Okay. So, this is about potential. So, before you were married, ladies, before you were married, how many children did you have? How many did you want? Okay? Before you get that involved, the want is there. That's potentiality. This is the reality. What? What is the reality? All right. So Richard and Charity, they're discussing with each other. How many children do they want to have? How many kids? Boys, girls, what have you? All of these kinds of even what are their names going to be? All these kinds of things. But what does it matter until she becomes pregnant? Otherwise, until that time, it's just a dream. It's a hope. It's an aspiration. But it is not reality. Why is this important? We're going to stop here. Why is this important? I want you to think about this week, because we're going to take up here, because this takes us into Tet. This is why we told you at the very first class that in Judaism, learning for the simple act of learning is worthless, is a worthless pursuit, according to the rabbis. Education for education's sake is a worthless pursuit. It has no value. Therefore, in Judaism, we learn in order to do. Everyone say that. We learn in order to do. And then we learn in order to teach others to do. Okay? So the whole idea here is that no matter what your dreams or your aspirations are, they are in fact nothing unless they're brought into reality. When you say, I want to do this, I want to do that, you have your desires, you have all of these things, but they are nothing until they're brought to reality. Is she's the bride, but is she the wife? She's the bride. Is she the wife? No. And here's the truth, and it has happened before. What if, God forbid, he gets killed in a car wreck? Before. What if, God forbid, she gets killed in a car wreck? Before. What am I saying? It's not there yet. What I want you to focus on here is that every single one of us has potential. Every human being has potential. But not every human being brings that potential to reality. Did you know, every one of us here, every one of you, you could be a spiritual warrior. You could be a spiritual powerhouse. You have the potential. What is it then? You have not brought it to reality. In what means have you not brought it to reality? Is that you have not gone through with the wedding. You've made a commitment, but you haven't finished it yet. You're not committed completely. you've left yourself some wiggle room, some space. Right? So one day, Wilma was working in an office. She had moved up from her position as waitress to being a secretary in the psychology department, no less. So I bought her a diamond ring. They call what? Diamonds are also called, known as ice, right? So I thought of this cool trick. I went to the soda fountain and I got a Coke with ice. I put the ring at the bottom. It was there with all the other ice, right? But it's more valuable ice. And I took it to her office and I gave her this Coke with ice and the real ice at the bottom. And she's there drinking it, and she's drinking, and I'm sitting there waiting, hurry up and drink the drink, get there, you know. Shouldn't have bought her so much Coke. She finally gets to the bottom, and she looks down, she says, there's something in there, what is that? Is that a roach, or what is that in there? And she goes and she starts emptying the ice out, and she's looking and looking, and she pulls the ring out, and she starts to cry. And I get down on my knee and I ask her, will you marry me? And she's there, yes. Oh. But wait. Because you see, a couple of months later, she got pretty doggone upset with me. And she took the ring off of her finger. And she gave it back to me. What? Well, you see, there was potential for a wedding to take place, but what? It wasn't reality. And where she had said yes, now she's saying no. And we're not married, so there's no muss, no fuss, no courts, no judge, no nothing, no money, no nothing. It's just, I don't want to marry you. Okay? Obviously, we made it right? I gave her the ring back. Promised I would change my ways. So now we have these rings. This ring is different. This ring is different. Why is this ring different? It tells you something. The potential became real. Now what? She can't throw that diamond ring. Get back at me now. Now she has to take me to a judge. Right? I want you to ask yourself this question this week and think about this week. What are the potentials that you have in your spiritual life, as well as in your physical life, that you have not achieved? And would you consider the fact that we have not achieved potential because we have left ourselves wiggle room to get out from it? So that it's only potential, but it's not reality. How many of us have said, I wish I could be like so-and-so. I wish I could be like the prophet. I wish I could be like this woman. I wish I could be like Sarah, or I wish I could have the faith of Esther. I wish I could have that kind of strength and that kind of... The thing is, you can. You have the potential. The problem is that you're living in a dream world and not facing reality. So, quick turn to the book of James, chapter 5. He says in verse 16, so confess your offenses to one another, pray for one another so that you may be healed. Watch, the effective prayer of a righteous person is very powerful. Literally what it says is that the effective prayer of a righteous person accomplishes much. Literally what it says is the fervent, the fiery prayer. James 5:16. Look at verse 17. Elijah was a man with a nature like ours, and he prayed earnestly that it might not rain. It did not rain on the earth for 3 years and 6 months. He prayed again, and the sky gave rain, and the earth produced its fruit. The important thing that is being pointed out here is that it says that Elijah is just like you and me. He's no different. Look at what he's able to accomplish, this great prophet. He calls down fire from heaven. You say, I'm able to call down fire from heaven? You have the potential. How do I get to the reality? Remove the wiggle room. Total commitment. Like a husband and wife. Totally committed to each other. Potential becomes reality. So with that we say, Shalom.